Good day everyone, I am Sir Jerickson Chua and welcome to Animation 1. So before we start our session for today, may I request all of you to please bow your head as we feel the presence of our Lord through this prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Cleanup is part of the workflow in the production of hand-drawn animation. In traditional animation, the first drawing are called roughs or rough animation because they are often done in a very loose fashion. If the animation is successfully pencil tested and approved by the director, clean versions of drawings have to be done. For today's lesson, we're going to discuss producing cleanup and in between drawings. Our learning objectives at the end of the lesson, you should be able to match and model cleanup drawing to animator's key, number all animation breakdowns onto a cleanup drawing, produce cleanup drawings which are consistent with the requirements, copy animation breakdowns onto cleanup drawing, apply software animation in cleanup drawing, apply procedures and policies in records keeping, and produce or perform cleanup procedures. For our quote of the day, animation is about creating the illusion of life, and you can't create it if you don't have it. This is according to Brad Bird. That's why we are learning how to animate for us to create a great illusion of life later on as future animators. Our key terms, we have cleanup drawing, animator keys, on-model drawing, line testing, breakdown, records keeping, and referral. So the cleanup stage is where all rough and reworked drawing of the animator are carefully redrawn, neatly and accurately to reflect the original design of the character he or she is working on. This task is given to animator's assistant on a cleanup artist to render a clean version of the rough drawings by using the final quality line art over the animator's rough. So this is an example of the animator rough, and this is the cleanup stage. In the animation production process, after the key animation has been line tested and scenes are approved by the director, the next step is to clean up the animation. All elements are placed in the animation scene folder that goes to the next department, which is clean up department. This makes sure that every drawing is finished masterpiece. So basically, once we have drawn this outline or rough drawing on our paper, we will scan it and then we can render it using our software to create a cleanup version of that drawing. So a good cleanup artist is a person who first put emphasis on the importance of detail. Okay, so detail is very important on this one. Likes drafting and creating a very detailed drawing. He or she is knowledgeable on the human anatomy and life drawings, creates smooth lines, and is patient. And that is one of the key characteristics of a good animator, being patient on your drawings. So this is an example of roughly created drawing, okay? And then this is the scanned one, and this is the cleanup where colors are being present on the character itself. So let's proceed to what we call our animator keys. So basically, animator keys are your characters or poses. So animator keys or key drawings are rough key poses and expressions produced by the animator while working over the layout given to the cleanup artist to animate And after visualizing their assigned sequence from the storyboard, the key drawings must exhibit dynamism and balance, and it must be communicated to the audience at every point of the action. That's why it needs to tell a story. So each of the key posts needed to tell a story, be in balance, have the necessary drive and structure to imply the precise emotion or personality that the animator is attempting to communicate. Bad poses lead to bad animation and vice versa. Therefore, he or she should give each pose the attention that um, it respects that it deserves. Okay. Key poses are the key moments that clearly describes the important physical actions or emotion situation in a scene. These are basically the character's most important poses. In fact, these are so essential to the movement that if the person removes any of them from the scene, it would no longer work effectively. So here are examples of key drawing. So we have your key here, your key, and keys. So later on, once we have done or discussed about in-betweens, we can now create in-between drawings here to create a smooth movement that transitions from first key to the next key until the last key. So these are also examples of key poses. So this is a key pose. Next are called the in-betweens. Okay. And the red one is called what we call your breakdown. So basically that's the middle pose. And this one is your last key. Okay. So this blue one and green one here are called your in-betweens. Okay. So this makes a smooth transition from this pose until the last pose. These are also examples of animator keys. This one until this one. And we have what we call your extreme poses, which is your first and last poses. The middle one, which is the passing position, this is called a breakdown, as I said a while ago. And all the drawing from your extreme until the breakdown are called your in-betweens. And from your breakdown until your last extreme are called in-betweens also. So these are the components of your animator keys. So in the traditional animation process, the animation director checks all the key drawings once they have been approved. It will be forwarded to the cleanup department, and these drawings must match the character models and contain all details. The following should be observed to match cleanup drawings with animator keys. So the first one that we need to consider is to use clean keys as a reference and rough line as a guide for the final drawing. We need to stick to the original rough line as closely as possible. Okay? We need to use light blue or red pencil to do a rough cleanup first. Okay? Before you can now render our final cleanup. So I'll give you an example, this one. So this is an example of the keys that I am talking about, and it uses blue and red pencils. So as you can see here, we have here your red one. These are the blue one, and we can also use green one as our reference, and we have the black ones. So this one is what we call our extreme key. Okay, and this one also is your extreme key. Okay, we also have here your breakdown. As you can see here, this is your number 5 as one of our breakdown, and some of the keys here are your in-betweens. Okay. Okay, this is also an example of different keys poses. Okay, number 4, drawings must be consistent with the previous key. Okay, so that your movement will be smoother and it will not be jittery. Okay, you need to check the endpoints and the spatial relationships between the lines that form the different features. And if possible, okay, if something wobbles, shrink, grow, or pops, it must be fixed immediately so that your final rendered poses will not move, okay, not according to the line of action that we are going to. Okay, so here are another example of animator keys. And it presents the conversational movement of that particular character. Okay, and the last thing to consider is we need to observe the principles of animation when creating animator keys. Okay, sometimes a cleanup artist is required to redraw rough drawing because the key animator has completely gone off the model. Okay? As discussed before, we should always be on model when creating our characters. The cleanup must retain the process and poses and the composition of the rough sketches. Cleanup artists standardize the character according to the model sheet. So if a cleanup model differs from the original rough or volumes are very inconsistent, the cleanup artist will redraw the character to a new sheet of paper. In this case, red pencil is used to rough out the poses again using construction shapes, bringing the characters back to model before drawing the final graphite line. When recreating the rough, he or she needs to work with the shapes, forms, and respectives while returning to the movement and flow of the action that the character is really performing. Okay, so we need to think about that. And while the final work is what we call a cleanup, which resembles illustrated line, the construction of the character is closely aligned with the life drawing. It is important to think of one's character as having skeleton and muscles, not just as a collection of neat lines. Okay, so think about the character skeleton and muscles as well. The person has to capture the curve and flow of the muscles as they move and bend when shifting weight. This is why life drawing is more important to animation. The cleanup artist has to construct the characters in perspective with their form and weight before drawing the final line or final form. Now, let's proceed to what we call on model. So, a number of animations or animators with varying styles may work on the same character in the same animation. But in the cleanup stage, a cleanup department is responsible for bringing the character drawings back to their original specification of the model, making it look as if each character is drawn by one animator. And this is called what we call on model. This serves as the final work on how to draw the characters. If any detail that have been left out, the cleanup artist must ensure that they are placed back in. In doing the cleanup, the challenge is to keep the life and movement. And it has to capture and not lose it while trying to bring the character back to model. So you have to make sure that when creating the character itself and the poses, it should be always be on model, meaning the size, the proportion, the height, the weight, and so on should be always on the rough, okay, based on the rough. Okay, so this is an example of constructing the SpongeBob character. So it should always be on model, meaning it should be similar with the created rough key drawing. And as you can see here, the specifications of the size and the size of the hand and feet are also placed on this one. Okay, so let's proceed now to line testing. So when we say line testing, so basically it is the process to use to check the drawing. Basically, to check the animation itself, if it's moving before they use it for the final stage of the production. So it is done when all drawings have been cleaned up. And one way of line testing is flipping the drawing by hand. So you may do the compositing activity that we have discussed before, or you may also do flipbook to check the line of the poses. Okay, pencil testing is used in lip sync also, and one way is to scan the drawings and play it back in the computer. Okay, so these scanned drawings will be used by the animator to check the flow of sequence, and the animator will redraw, add, or delete frames if the result is unsatisfactory. So basically, line testing is being done, okay, to check also the flow of the actions, okay, and if it's jittery or not good as it's presented on the line testing, okay, it needs to be redrawn. Okay, so as you can see here, here are examples of line testing. Okay, so let's proceed to breakdown for cleanup drawing. So when we say breakdowns, okay, this comes before between the keys that helps the keyframe animators describe the action of the in-between animators. So breakdown drawing helps the key position of a character or the object. So here are the indicators that we need to consider when creating the keys, breakdowns, and in-between markers in placing it in the exposure sheets or even on the breakdown charts that we will be creating later on. So when we have our key drawings, our indicators is what we call your circle numbers. Okay, so basically once you place this on your breakdown charts, okay, any number that is circled, that is called your key drawing. Okay, and your key drawings can be an extreme key or just drawing in between the breakdown chart. Okay, we also have here your breakdown drawing. So this is underlined number. We have your line or a bracket as an indicator for that. And in between drawings, these are indicated by numbers. Okay, so any numbers that is placed on your breakdown chart is called your in between. Okay, so breakdowns are numbered onto clean up drawings using animation chart, while animating, timing, and spacing on drawings are indicated on drawings which are numbered. Odd numbers presents each drawing exposed for 2 frames or on twos, while on ones is both even and odd numbers. Okay, so meron tayong on twos and on ones of our breakdown chart. So this is an example of a breakdown chart. So as you can see here, we have your keys. Okay, we have here your keys. We have here your breakdown, and we have here your in-betweens. So your key is 1 and 17, and your breakdown is 7, and we have here in-betweens 3, 5, 9, 11, 13, and 15. So those are called your in-betweens. This is also an example of that breakdown chart. As you can see here, we have 1, 7, and 13 as your keys, 3 and 5 as your in-between. Okay, so on charting of your breakdowns, okay, we have here what we call your breakdown charts, or which is charting on twos. Why do we need to use charting on twos? Because basically we follow the 12 FPS on your Macromedia Flash. That's why we use the on twos. But if you do 24 FPS, you may do the on ones, okay, where you can use even and odd numbers. But on our animation, we follow the on twos because basically we do the 12 FPS and we follow the odd numbers format. Okay, so here are examples of the charting which is on twos. We have your basic half. So when we do charting on basic half, we have 1, 3, and then 5. So basically, your 3 is your breakdown, 1 and 3 is your keys. So this is called the basic half. But if you place lines here, or breakdown on that in between, okay, so this is called a halves slow in. Okay, halves slow in. So we have 1, 3, 5, and 7. So key, we have your breakdown, and we have your in between here. But if you do another breakdown here, okay, or if you do another in between here, we call it halves even. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. This is called halves even. But on this one, we have halves slow in. And we also have here halves slow in and slow out. So you just need to place another in between on the first in between that you did here and in between here. So you do in between 3 and 5, in between 13 and 15 to create this halves slow in and slow out. Okay. Next, we also have thirds. So as you can see here, we have 1, 3, 5, and 7. We have your key, we have your breakdown here, we have your in between here, and we have your key here. So 1/3, that is on thirds. And we also have here favor. Okay, we have your key, your in between, and we have your key. So this is an example of a favor. Okay, and some instances they also do breakdowns that is on a horizontal perspective. Okay, but we do this charting on twos because we can create the models later on that will be placed on your exposure sheets. Okay, so this is an example of a slow in. So as you can see, we have here your key and in betweens. Okay, So the number 6 here should also be a key. Okay. Okay. So this is slow in. So as you can see, we have here your first pose, and then our second pose is here, and then in between until here. Okay, so that's slow in. Now we also have here slow out. So as you can see, it's more jammed. Okay, from the first to the fifth, and then the sixth pose is um, away from the first 5 poses. You also have here your even, as you can see here, as a movement of even poses. It uses several keys, and as you can see here, we have your on ones and on twos. So as I said a while ago, on ones uses 24 FPS and on twos uses 12 FPS or frames per second. So let's proceed on copying animation breakdown onto a cleanup drawing. One of the responsibilities of a cleanup artist is to make sure that the key drawings have a breakdown and there are no mistakes. The breakdown chart is a guide used by the cleanup artist to know where the in-betweens are placed on the X sheet. The breakdown chart will be copied by the cleanup artist onto the cleanup drawing after each drawing is finished. But in some cases, breakdowns are done as a rough drawing using two clean up keys. The scene is forwarded to the in-betweeners to do the in-between poses. Once all breakdowns are finished, the timing chart must have all the drawings labeled, numbered, and key numbers are cleaned. And breakdowns are even underlined so that the in-betweener know exactly what to do with the cleanup artist. So as you can see here, this is an example of the rough, and then we have here the different poses. And based on the presentation here, as you can see here, the keys are also labeled with the different numbers, and we have your breakdown here and the in-betweens. Okay, so let's try this for us to better understand how do um, in-betweens, keys, and breakdown is being placed on a cartoon pose or character pose. So as you can see here, we have your extreme key pose here, and this one is also your extreme. We have number 1 and 17. So let's see where will be the in-between and the breakdown. Okay, just guess. Okay, so the answer should be like this. Okay, so this can be used as one of your keys as well. So you may place in between here. This will be your breakdown. This will be your key. This will also be your breakdown. So in a breakdown sheet, it's not necessary that you can just place one breakdown at a time in that particular movement. You may also place 2 or more breakdowns as needed. Okay, let's see. This is another example. Okay, so 3 is another example of your key, and this can be used as your in-between 2 and 4. So this is on 1s, while the example a while ago, this is on 2s. Okay, so let's proceed now on the different procedures and policies in records keeping. So once we have created your drawings, okay, we have created your poses, your model sheets, okay, and other document that is needed on the animation production, such as your layout, your storyboard, okay, the document for exposure sheets, and so on. We need to follow what we call the procedures and policies in records keeping. So basically, records keeping policy is an essential part of the animation production, where its components for any record management program is placed in the animation industry, where this is also an effective means of communicating to the staff their record keeping responsibilities. So basically, once we place these records on a record keeping file, we can just get those model sheets later on once it is needed. Okay, in animation production, there are standards in materials that are being kept. Okay, so what are the standard materials? We have the hard copy of your storyboard. Okay, black and white model packs. Okay, you may also use the color models on a compact disc or CD. The soundtrack or tape or animatic scene list. The different exposure sheets or X sheets. Your client drawn animation and background layout, which are then received by the materials production assistant that make sure that it is complete. And so this is the example of the storyboard that you may place on that folder. Okay, so model packs, storyboards, and exposure sheets are then photocopied and soundtrack copies are made on tape. So these copies will then be placed on a file that needs to be recorded, and the original hard copies are then stored. The scene folders are prepared by labeling according to show, episode number, the footage, and original exposure sheet. So basically, all the document that you will be needed for the production, okay, will be placed on what we call our scene folder. So the scene folder, as you can see here, we can just place the layout, the exposure sheets, okay, the cleanup, the in-betweens, the pencil test and final testing, the color in style, and documents, and the different contents here, different keys, cleanup, props, layout, and so on, and some notes and the name of that particular scene folder. So this will be our folder where we will place all the materials needed in the production, so that once the director needs the file, you can just browse that folder and that will be organized in the records later on. Okay, so aside from that, the client-drawn animation layout will also be part of that scene folder where it is photocopied, including the background and layout itself. The scenes are also encoded on the production monitoring system by the project coordinator. And the photocopies of each scene are combined and stored. Okay, so those are the things that we need to store on the animation production. The original layouts are also separated from the scene folder and forwarded to the digital production coordinator. And the original layouts, fielding, and camera notes, plus the photocopy of the background are retained in the scene folder. So if you want to get the file from that scene folder, you just need to photocopy it and then please put the original copies on the scene folder. And the different materials are stored and not used for a long time, it will be easier for locating. Okay, now let's proceed on making appropriate referral to personnel. Okay, so this is similar with our discussions before on reporting to the property custodian. So some animators are not able to do their tasks on time, in which cases cleanup artists or other persons should report the problem. So if there are problems or discrepancies with the key animation, X sheets, or breakdowns, you need to report it first to the supervisor. So in a group later on in the animation production, there will be some problems, okay, encountered, especially if 2 or more people are not communicating well. So if that happens, you may just report it to the supervisor so that the problem will be resolved. Okay? So if the supervisors cannot then work it out, then it will go to the appropriate department to talk with the person responsible. And if all else fail, they can call on the director or production manager to sort out the problem so that the team will be intact and then the problem will be solved as well. Okay, now how do we now implement the necessary corrections when it comes to the different drawings in the animation production? So the cleanup artists often start their process by using dark pencil to structure everything. Then these cleanup pencil drawings are then inked onto clear acetate cells, after which they were painted and shot. So basically, this is an example of traditional drawing activity. So they draw the acetate, okay, here, as you can see here, and then they create the colors using different coloring materials to create that particular character. Okay, so when using a pencil test, artists make sure that they consistently follow through from drawing to drawing with it in keeping with their original design. So that's why we need to always be on model. And we need to keep in mind that the thickness of lines must be consistent in all drawings so that it will not destroy the smoothness of the animation. So In implementing necessary correction, okay, you have to make sure that the size, the shape, and the height, and the width, and so on should be similar with the model that has been created. Okay, so in summary of our discussion, we already discussed cleanup drawings, animator keys, on-model drawing, line testing, the different key breakdown and in-between drawing, including the indicators, breakdown onto cleanup drawings, okay, records keeping, making appropriate referral, and the different corrections. So, as an quotation, you must not let anyone define your limits because it is where you come from. Your only limit is yourself. This is according to Gusto in Ratatouille. Okay, so we should not limit ourselves in creating creative things. Okay, as well as animation cartoons in the future. So for our practice, okay, we will do PETA 8, in which you will model a cleanup, okay, model cleanup. What you're going to do now is to get your favorite object or thing in your house or room, and you need to draw a model version of it to be placed in a short bond paper. So you also need to place color on your model cleanup. So this is an example of it. So my favorite fruit, one of my favorite fruit, we have a watermelon. So you need to create a draft and a cleanup version of that particular model sheet. And for our activity 7, you're going to construct a cartoon drawing based on the drawing below. So as you can see here, you will draw sample faces, okay, and then with different shapes. This one with rough outline and the actual drawing itself and the different faces and body shapes. So all of this will be drawn in a bond paper, okay. So this one and this one will be placed in one bond paper, and this one and this one will be placed on another bond paper. So for activity 7, you will be submitting 2 bond papers, okay, drawing the following.
Thank you for watching, and I hope that you have learned many things from our discussion. See you on our next lesson. Keep safe and God bless.